Grand Curator Zextal adjusted his ceremonial robes as he led the delegation through the Museum of Primitive Technologies. His bioluminescent patches glowed with pride as they approached the centerpiece of his latest exhibition, a massive human warship suspended in a containment field. "Behold," he announced to the assembled dignitaries, "the HS Phoenix, a perfect example of how lesser species attempt spacefaring." His tendrils waved dismissively at the angular vessel. Note the crude armor plating, the inefficient engine configuration, and the barbaric weapon systems. The assembled aliens, representatives from the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, chittered and hummed in amusement. The ship looked absurdly brutal compared to their own elegant vessels. Where their ships were smooth and organic, this human vessel was all sharp angles and exposed weapon mounts. "How did you acquire such a specimen?" asked Ambassador Vril, her crystalline form refracting the museum's soft lighting. "Found abandoned in the outer rim," Zextal replied. "No signs of battle damage or catastrophic failure. They simply left it, probably realized how hopelessly outmatched their technology was and abandoned it." He gestured to various features with his field pointer. "Observe the primitive radiation shielding, the wasteful heat management systems, the redundant backup systems taking up valuable space." Clearly, they had no grasp of proper engineering principles. The delegation followed him around the vessel, their own advanced sensors confirming what seemed obvious. This was a relic of a species that barely understood spacefaring technology. The ship's systems appeared to be built to withstand ridiculous amounts of punishment, as if its creators expected it to be constantly damaged. "Most amusing," noted Supreme Engineer Tex, his mechanical eyes whirring as they analyzed the vessel. "They appear to have designed it to continue functioning even when severely damaged. Such inefficiency. A proper ship simply shouldn't be damaged in the first place." Zextal preened at the response his exhibition was receiving. "Indeed. Note how they relied on physical armor rather than proper energy shielding. And these weapon systems, chemical propellants, and crude mass drivers rather than elegant particle beams." The tour continued, with each new feature drawing more derision from the assembled dignitaries. They mocked the oversized life support systems, the massive cargo holds, the thick internal bulkheads. Everything about the ship seemed to speak of a species that approached space travel with all the sophistication of cave dwellers. None of them noticed the ship's power core maintaining a barely detectable idle state. None of their sensors detected the quantum-encrypted transmissions pulsing through subspace at intervals measured in years. None of them understood why the ship's systems were designed to operate even under conditions that would render their own vessels useless. Deep within the Phoenix, in heavily shielded chambers that registered as simple storage spaces to alien sensors, rows of cryopods maintained their precious cargo. The ship's AI core, operating on minimal power, continued its eternal vigil. In its memory banks, it held its final orders. Wait until needed. Protect the crew. When the time comes, show them what humanity can do. The aliens continued their tour, laughing at what they saw as primitive design choices. They never questioned why a supposedly abandoned ship had such comprehensive internal security systems. They never wondered why its computer systems resisted all attempts at deep scanning. They were too convinced of their own superiority to ask the important questions. In the darkness of space beyond the museum's walls, the first signs of an approaching storm were appearing. Signals were going dark. Colonies were falling silent. Something was coming. Something that would make the galaxy desperately need the very capabilities they were now mocking. The Phoenix waited. Its systems remained ready. Its crew slept. And in its AI core, a countdown continued, not to some predetermined time, but to a set of conditions that would indicate its services were needed. The galaxy thought they were displaying a relic. They didn't realize they were housing a sleeping giant, one that represented humanity's approach to warfare. Be prepared for the worst. Build to survive. Never give up. Never abandon your people. The mockery would continue for now. But soon, very soon, the laughter would stop. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was not going well. Grand Curator Zextal's bioluminescence had dimmed to an anxious flicker as reports continued to stream in. "Another colony gone silent," announced Defense Coordinator Vril, her crystalline form clouded with stress patterns. "That's the 12th in 2 standard cycles. Whatever this force is, our standard defenses are proving inadequate." The council chamber erupted in nervous chatter. Their mighty civilization, built on elegant technology and sophisticated defense systems, was facing something unprecedented. The enemy ships, if they could be called ships, simply absorbed their most powerful weapons. Particle beams dispersed harmlessly. Quantum disruptors had no effect. "How are they defeating our shields?" demanded Supreme Engineer Tex. "It should be impossible." "They're not defeating them," Vril replied, her voice resonating with fear. "They're ignoring them. Their ships just push through, taking the damage, remaining operational despite conditions that should render any vessel inoperable." In the museum below, forgotten amid the crisis, the HSS Phoenix's systems noted the energy patterns of weapons fire. Its AI core processed the tactical data trickling through the facility's networks. Comparison algorithms ran against archived combat data. A match was found. The ship's power core began to cycle up. "We need to evacuate," Vril was saying. "Our models show they'll reach this sector within." The chamber's lighting flickered. Throughout the museum complex, systems began to fluctuate. "What now?" Zextal demanded of his staff. "Power surge from the primitive ship display," a technician reported. It's activating." In the museum's central chamber, the containment field around the Phoenix dissipated. The ship that had been an object of mockery began to hum with power. Panels shifted. Weapons emerged from hidden recesses. The vessel's angular form, previously dismissed as crude, now looked distinctly predatory. Security forces rushed in, only to find themselves locked out by emergency bulkheads. Inside the ship, cryopods began their awakening sequences. The AI core, fully online for the first time in decades, initiated ship-wide revival protocols. In the council chamber, screens lit up with images from the museum. The assembled leaders watched in shock as the Phoenix's systems activated one by one. What they had thought were primitive backup systems turned out to be entire secondary and tertiary configurations coming online. Captain Sarah Chen of the HSS Phoenix opened her eyes to the soft blue light of her cryopod. The revival process had been perfect, another testament to the technology the aliens had dismissed as crude. She felt the familiar sensation of artificial gravity engaging as she stepped out, her muscles strong thanks to the pod's preservation systems. "Status report," she commanded. The ship's AI responded immediately. "Captain, we have maintained surveillance as ordered. The Nexus Collective is under attack by a Class 4 hostile force, matching profiles from the Descent War. Their defense systems are proving ineffective." Chen smiled grimly as she strode to the bridge, her crew emerging from their pods throughout the ship. Just like Command predicted, they'd encounter something their elegant technology couldn't handle, and they'd need our primitive solutions. The bridge came alive as her crew took their stations. The Phoenix's systems, far from being redundant, were exactly what was needed to fight an enemy that couldn't be stopped by conventional means. "Ma'am," her tactical officer reported, "the hostile force matches the Devourers we fought in the Descent War. Same tactics, brute force, overwhelming numbers, no concern for casualties. The same enemy that taught humanity that elegant solutions don't always work," Chen mused. "Sometimes you need armor that can take a hit, weapons that keep firing even when half the ship is gone, systems that can operate even under impossible conditions." In the council chamber above, the alien leaders watched in confusion as the Phoenix's primitive systems revealed their true purpose. The thick armor wasn't just for protection. It contained nanite repair systems far beyond their understanding. The oversized reactor wasn't inefficient. It was designed to power systems that could fight even when most of the ship was destroyed. "Captain," the AI reported, The Council is demanding an explanation. Chen touched a control, opening a channel to the chamber above. This is Captain Chen of the HSS Phoenix. We were stationed here because our analysts predicted this sector would be the first target when the Devourers returned. Your civilization was judged too dependent on technology that wouldn't work against this threat. She paused, allowing that to sink in. What you saw as primitive was actually designed specifically to counter the enemy you're now facing. And if you want to survive what's coming, you're going to need our help. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. They hadn't been housing a relic. They'd been given a guardian, placed precisely where it would be needed most. And now it was time for the Phoenix to show them exactly why humanity designed ships the way they did. The Nexus Collective's command center was in chaos as they watched their elegant defensive line crumble before the Devourer assault. Their sleek ships, marvels of advanced technology, were being torn apart by enemies that simply absorbed their most sophisticated weapons. Captain Chen stood calmly at the Phoenix's tactical display, watching the battle unfold. Her crew worked with practiced efficiency, their movements precise despite decades in cryo-sleep. The ship's primitive systems were at full power, revealing capabilities that made the alien observers' eyes widen. Their command ship is breaking through Sector 7, reported Lieutenant Santos at Tactical. Collective vessels are attempting to withdraw. Show them how humans fight, Chen ordered. All hands, combat stations, engineering, bring the kinetic drivers online. The Phoenix's engines roared to life, pushing the ship forward with acceleration that should have torn it apart. What the aliens had dismissed as inefficient engine design now demonstrated its true purpose, the ability to maneuver under conditions that would destroy more sophisticated vessels. First lesson. Chen transmitted to the watching collective leaders. Sometimes brute force beats elegance. The Phoenix charged straight into the Devourer formation. Its thick armor, layered with technologies the aliens hadn't even detected, shrugged off impacts that had destroyed the collective's finest ships. The vessel's crude weapons opened up, revealing why humans still used kinetic weapons in an age of energy beams. Mass drivers, full spread. Chen commanded. Show them why we stick with primitive ballistics. The Phoenix's main guns fired, launching projectiles at velocities that turned them into weapons of mass destruction. Unlike energy weapons that could be absorbed or deflected, these rounds carried enough kinetic energy to tear through multiple Devourer ships. The enemy vessels, adapted to defend against energy weapons, had no defense against simple physics. Impossible, Supreme Engineer Tex exclaimed, watching the battle. Those weapons, they're just throwing metal at appreciable fractions of light speed, Chen corrected over the channel. No shield can deny conservation of momentum. Sometimes the old ways work best. The Phoenix executed maneuvers that seemed suicidal, deliberately taking hits that would have vaporized collective ships. But with each impact, the vessel's true sophistication became apparent. Damage control systems that had appeared redundant and wasteful proved capable of keeping the ship fighting even after taking damage that should have been fatal. Second lesson, Chen announced as the Phoenix's armor self-repaired under fire. Don't build ships that need to avoid damage. Build ships that can take it and keep fighting. The Devourers, facing a vessel designed specifically to counter their advantages, began to fall back. The Phoenix pursued relentlessly, its weapons never falling silent. When energy weapons were ineffective, it switched to kinetics. When one system was damaged, backups engaged seamlessly. We're not defenseless, Chen explained to the watching aliens. We're defensive. There's a difference. Your ships are designed never to be hit. Ours are designed to take the hit and hit back harder. In the command center, the collective leaders watched in amazement as their supposedly primitive guardians demonstrated warfare on a level they hadn't imagined. The Phoenix wasn't just fighting. It was teaching them, showing them what they'd missed in their pursuit of elegant solutions. Third lesson. Chen continued as the Phoenix executed another seemingly impossible maneuver. Technology isn't about complexity. It's about solving problems. Sometimes the simple solution is the best one. The ship's AI coordinated its systems with an efficiency that belied its supposed primitive nature. What the aliens had seen as crude computer systems were actually quantum processors designed to operate even under conditions that would destroy more sophisticated computers. Their formation is breaking, Santos reported. They're attempting to regroup at coordinates Mark 7. Not today, Chen replied. Show them the last lesson. Lieutenant, activate the TAOR systems. The Phoenix's hull began to glow as hidden emitters activated. What the aliens had thought was primitive radiation shielding revealed itself to be something far more sophisticated. A weapon that turned the ship's entire hull into a transmitter for focused electromagnetic pulses. Final lesson. Chen transmitted as the THOR system reached full power. Never judge by appearances. The pulse fired, and the nearby devourer ships simply went dark, their systems overloaded by a weapon they'd never encountered. The Phoenix moved through their formation like a predator, its kinetic weapons ending the threat with brutal efficiency. As the last enemy ship fell silent, Chen opened a channel to the collective command center. That was just the advance force. The main fleet will be here within days. Now, shall we discuss how to prepare your ships for real warfare? The silence from the command center was broken only by Supreme Engineer Kex's quiet words. Perhaps we have much to learn about the true nature of advanced technology. Chen smiled. The real work was just beginning. The massive fabrication yards of the Nexus Collective, once dedicated to producing elegant ships of crystalline beauty, now hummed with a different purpose. Under Captain Chen's guidance, the Phoenix's engineering crews were teaching the aliens a new way of thinking about warfare. You're deliberately making them less sophisticated. Supreme Engineer Kex's mechanical eyes whirred in distress as he watched human engineers modify a collective destroyer. This goes against everything we believe about technological advancement. Commander Jack Torres, the Phoenix's chief engineer, wiped grease from his hands as he faced the alien engineer. No, we're making them more survivable. Look at this. He pointed to a holographic display of the modified ship. Your power distribution systems are beautiful, perfectly optimized, and that's the problem. One hit and the whole network fails. Around them, the massive shipyard was transforming. Collective ships were being retrofitted with what the aliens had once mocked as primitive technology. Thick armor plates covered elegant hulls. Redundant systems replaced optimized ones. Kinetic weapons supplemented energy beams. But the efficiency ratings, Kitex began, will drop, Torres interrupted, and your survival rates will soar. The devourers don't care about efficiency. They care about results. So should you. On the Phoenix's bridge, Captain Chen was conducting a different kind of lesson. The ship's combat simulator was running collective crews through scenarios they'd never considered. You're ordering us to deliberately take damage. The collective tactical officer's tendrils writhed in confusion. Sometimes taking a hit to your armor is better than depleting your shields trying to avoid it, Chen explained. Energy management isn't just about prevention. It's about choosing your battles. The simulation showed a collective ship, modified with human-inspired technology, absorbing hits that would have previously destroyed it. Its new kinetic weapons tore through devourer defenses while its reinforced hull kept it in the fight. This is barbaric, someone muttered. This is survival, Chen corrected. The devourers are coming with a fleet 10 times the size of what you saw before. We don't have time for elegant solutions. We need solutions that work. In orbit, the first wave of modified ships was already conducting battle drills. Their movements were less graceful now, but far more deadly. Where once they would have danced away from danger, now they stood their ground, their new armor shrugging off hits while their hybrid weapons, combining collective energy technology with human ballistic principles, demonstrated devastating effectiveness. Status report, Chen called out during a simulation review. Modified ships are showing 300% increase in combat survivability, her tactical officer reported. Collective crews are adapting to the new doctrine faster than expected. They're beginning to understand. Understanding had come at a cost. The collective's pride had taken a severe blow. But as their sensor networks reported the approaching Devourer fleet, pride became a luxury they couldn't afford. "We've modified 30% of their combat fleet," Torres reported during the evening briefing. "Another 40% are in process. The remaining ships won't be ready before the Devourers arrive. They'll have to learn in combat," Chen decided. "At least the modified ships can protect the others while they retreat and regroup." A junior officer rushed onto the bridge. "Captain, long-range sensors detect the Devourer fleet has changed course. They're accelerating. Time to arrival is now less than 24 hours. Chen's expression hardened. Earlier than expected. "They must have detected our preparations." She activated the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Captain Chen. The enemy has forced our hand. As of this moment, your training period is over. This is no longer an exercise." Throughout the collective fleet, crews scrambled to battle stations. Modified ships took their positions at the front of the formation, their new armor gleaming dully against the starfield. Behind them, unmodified ships formed up in support positions, their crews watching nervously as the enemy approached. "Remember your training," Chen broadcast. "Trust your ships. Trust the modifications. Most importantly, trust yourselves. You're about to learn that true advancement isn't about having the most elegant solution. It's about having the right solution." The Phoenix took its position at the head of the fleet. Its scared hull and angular form no longer drew derision from the collective crews. Now they saw it for what it was, a weapon designed not to avoid war's horror, but to face it and emerge victorious. "All ships, battle stations," Chen ordered. "Show them what humanity has taught you. Show them that sometimes the old ways, the hard ways, are the right ways." The collective fleet formed up behind the Phoenix, a strange hybrid of elegant alien design and human pragmatism. They were about to demonstrate that true sophistication wasn't about complexity, it was about effectiveness. And in the darkness of space ahead, the Devourer fleet approached, about to learn that their prey had grown new teeth. Space itself seemed to burn as the combined human collective fleet engaged the Devourer armada. The Phoenix led the charge, its primitive systems proving their worth as it smashed through the enemy's front line. Behind it, modified collective ships followed, their new hybrid designs transforming the battlefield into a killing ground. Multiple Devourer capital ships breaking formation, Lieutenant Santos reported from Tactical. "They're not used to prey that fights back effectively." Captain Chen watched as her lessons played out across the battlefield. Collective ships, once programmed to retreat at the first sign of damage, now stood their ground. Their new armor absorbed punishment while their hybrid weapons, elegant energy weapons married to brutal kinetic delivery systems, tore through Devourer defenses. "Supreme Engineer Ktex," Chen called over the command channel. "Status of the modified fleet." Kitex's voice crackled with an emotion that his species rarely showed. "Excitement. Beyond all projected parameters, Captain. Our ships are surviving hits that would have previously destroyed them instantly. The hybrid weapons are most effective." The battle unfolded like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Collective vessels, their hulls reinforced with human-designed armor, deliberately took hits to protect their unmodified companions. Their weapons alternated between sophisticated energy beams and devastating kinetic strikes, overwhelming the Devourer's adaptive defenses. "They're starting to understand," Commander Torres observed from engineering. "Look at how they're using the modifications." He was right. The collective crews were no longer simply following human doctrine. They were adapting it, combining it with their own technological expertise. Ships would use their energy weapons to create openings, then exploit them with kinetic strikes. Others deliberately took damage on their reinforced sections to maneuver into better firing positions. "Enemy flagship detected," Santos announced. "They're attempting to coordinate a counterattack." Chen smiled grimly. "Show them the final modification. All ships, execute pattern Phoenix." The modified collective ships moved into formation around the Phoenix. What appeared to be a defensive formation was actually something else, a carefully positioned array of energy transmitters and receivers. TUR system linking with collective ships. Torres reported. Energy synchronization at 95% and rising. The Phoenix's hull began to glow, but this time it wasn't acting alone. The modified collective ships added their power to the system, their own hulls lighting up in sequence. What had been a powerful electromagnetic pulse weapon was now something more, a combination of human engineering and collective energy manipulation technology. Last lesson. Chen broadcast on all frequencies. True advancement comes from cooperation, not isolation. The combined TUR system fired. A wave of electromagnetic energy, focused and amplified by collective technology, swept through the Devourer fleet. Ships went dark by the dozens, their systems overloaded by an attack that bypassed all their defenses. In their wake, kinetic weapons from the combined fleet finished what the pulse had started. The remaining Devourer ships attempted to retreat, but they found themselves pursued by vessels that no longer feared damage. The modified collective ships, their crews now confident in their ship's durability, pressed the attack relentlessly. Hours later, as cleanup operations began, Captain Chen stood in the collective's Grand Assembly Hall. The chamber, once a place where her ship had been mocked, now fell silent as she addressed the gathered representatives. "You asked me why humanity designed ships the way we did," she began. "Now you know. We built them not to avoid warfare's horror, but to endure it. Not to prevent damage, but to survive it. Not to demonstrate our sophistication, but to ensure our survival." She gestured to the holographic display showing the modified collective ships. "But today showed us something more. Your technology, combined with our philosophy, created something greater than either of us had before. You taught us that elegance has its place. We taught you that durability has its value." Supreme Engineer Ktex stepped forward, his mechanical eyes focusing on the assembly. "The Phoenix was never a relic," he announced. "It was a teacher, waiting for us to be ready to learn. And what we learned may have saved our civilization. So what happens now?" Someone called from the assembly. Chen smiled. "Now we continue to learn from each other. Your ships will keep some of their elegance, but they'll never again sacrifice survivability for style. And perhaps we humans can learn to add some sophistication to our durability." The Phoenix would remain with the collective, not as a museum piece, but as a symbol of a new era. Its primitive design had taught an advanced civilization that true sophistication lay not in complexity, but in effectiveness. That sometimes the old ways, the hard ways, were the right ways. And in shipyards throughout collective space, a new generation of vessels took shape, ships that combined the best of both civilizations. Beautiful yet brutal, elegant yet enduring, sophisticated yet survivable. They called them Phoenix-class ships, and the galaxy would never be the same.